I'm about to have a quick interview with David Earl. He's the scriptwriter behind Pelee, which has been nominated at our festival in Nice. So congratulations, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's an
Over to
honor
you.
and I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. So the big question, where did the idea come from? What's the background to writing this wonderful script?
It was like in 2007, I read a book about the eruption of Mont Pelee
Yeah.
on the island of Martinique, which is in the French West Indies. The eruption happened in May 8, 1902. I'd never known anything about it, but I was astounded that no one had ever made a movie of it because the events leading up to it were so incredible.
So it's completely out of the blue that you came across this. Is that
Yeah.
frankly.
Actually, I found the book in a used. It was in a laundromat, and there were a whole bunch of books where people would just put books, and you could just help yourself. And
Right.
I thought, oh, this one looks pretty interesting. And sure, why not? So, I mean, I didn't read it all there at the laundromat.
No,
I just
no,
took
but
it
you're right,
down, and I thought, someday I'm going to write a screenplay about this. But it wasn't until years later, 2014, that I finally sat down and started doing the immense research into it. Reading other books, more recent books that were published, and many articles, National Geographic articles that came out right after the eruption, pouring over hundreds and hundreds of photos of before and after with Saint Pierre, the city that was destroyed by the eruption.
Because we should point out, which people that aren't associated with this industry, but I know, the amount of research that goes into whether it's a screenplay, script, writing, a treatment is quite immense. Actually.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps you can give us an idea. I mean, this is not a 5-minute job.
No. It shouldn't be.
No.
It shouldn't be. Especially if you're writing a story of history, of non-fictional history, and I hate it when I see a movie, and then after the movie comes out, it's skewered by historians as well. They didn't get that right, and I know all about dramatic liberties, but there was so much in this story that I realized right then, and I made a point out of myself that I wasn't going to fill it with a lot of fiction, because there was enough intrigue from beginning to end to build on right there from all the books that I read. And then, of course, I traveled to Martinique and spent a lot of time feet on the ground, walking all through Saint Pierre, meeting people there, an archaeologist on the island, and also a historian who was incredibly informative for my research on all the ships that were in the harbor at the time of the eruption.
And I guess this is invaluable because you can do it without going there, but it's not the same.
Oh yeah, and I was referring to them all the time when I was writing. I mean, I would find something that I can't find in the book. I'm doing all my so many websites on it, and doing all my Google, all my Bing, trying to find out information. I would always turn to Jacques and Jean, and who live in Saint Pierre, and they were always forthcoming with all this information that I couldn't find on my own, because, like as I said, I wanted to make it so accurate, chronologically accurate. The 7 days leading up to the eruption, which incidentally was also the deadliest eruption of the 20th century and the third deadliest in recorded history, with Tambora being number one and Krakatoa in the Dutch West Indies being the second. But Pelee, where 30,000 people died in the city of Saint Pierre, then regarded at the time as the Paris of the West Indies, it was a huge commercial port. More people died more quickly than in any volcanic eruption ever known. And people always think about Pompeii and Vesuvius.
Yes.
Actually, that's 10th deadliest on the list. About 1,500 to 2,000 people died in Pompeii when that erupted.
So I always thought it was
but there were 30,000 people in Saint Pierre.
Excuse me, I always thought it was tens of thousands with Vesuvius. It just shows you how wrong.
Yeah. yeah, and God, I certainly did my research on volcanoes. I went into this not knowing really much about volcanoes. Just as the people of St. Pierre and their experts in their scientific commission that the governor appointed to try to judge what kind of threat the volcano had on St. Pierre and on Lake Pritchard. And they didn't know anything about volcanoes either, because back in 1902, they didn't know what we know. First of all, nobody had ever seen to write about it and explain it, a pyroclastic flow, or Nuée Ardente. That's what, of course, buried Pompeii, but nobody wrote about it. So, in their minds, a volcano, 4 miles, 7 kilometers from this big city with 3 major hills and valleys separating the volcano from the city, all they can think of is, well, what you think of a volcano. You think of ash, which there was plenty of, and lava. You think of lava, and you think of these 3 big mountains and valleys. And there was no lava with Mont Pelee, never. It was a pyroclastic surge. And of course, if you've seen pictures of Mount St. Helens and other volcanoes, you know that it doesn't matter how many valleys or hills are in between, it just goes. So nobody had no idea of that kind of danger. And so their scientific commission judging the threat of Mont Pelee, they got a big F with that. But it wasn't really, though, their fault, because, like I said, they just didn't know. And most of the people came from France, and France isn't really known for its abundance of volcanoes.
No, I'm struggling to think of one in France.
So they were really at a major disadvantage. Another thing that was very, very intriguing. I mean, there were so many things going on. The misguided religious faith, where the clergy was telling people, just stay put. If they pray, this will pass. God will save them. So they listened to the church, the clergy. Another thing is that there was a major big election going on, and we both know what big elections are like, and how much mudslinging is going on both parties. In this case, it was for the Chamber of Deputies, a position in Paris. And on the progressive side was Ferdinand Clerc, and on the radical side was Louise Pearson. And a big problem with the at this time, because the election was supposed to be held on May 11th, which was a Sunday, and Pelee erupted on May 8th.
May the 8th.
There was a newspaper, and the editor was Marius Herard, and his paper was Les Colonies, and he was very pro-progressive party. So his paper had a lot of influence with the people of the island, particularly in St. Pierre, where his press was located. And he was constantly informing people, belittling any kind of a threat that Pelee had, downplaying that there was no worry to be there. And in fact, they would be safer if they came to St. Pierre. And so people, about 3,000 people, many further away from the volcano than St. Pierre, actually poured into the city. The city was filled, where the people were sleeping in the streets. People were even sleeping in the cemetery because there was no room for them anywhere, but they all felt that they would be safer there. So the city of about 27,000 expanded in its population to about 30,000. And again, right up into the very last edition of Les Colonies on May 7th, again, he was saying that there's no danger, there's no more danger from Pelee. And of course, I go into the full part of that in the story. All of the telegrams and newspaper articles mentioned in the script are all exact.
They're real.
Yeah, they're real.
And how do you? Must be such a process that you're going through. I mean, I know
it took a long time.
But
years.
How do you choose, or do you have an idea of mind of who the main people are going to be in this, and what do you base them on?
It's interesting. When I first read the first book, I was going to center it around Luis Separas. Now, everybody, at least in Martinique, regard Luis as the sole survivor in the city of Saint-Pierre. That's not true. There was another survivor, and he was a 27-year-old cobbler named Léon Compère Léod. And he survived the mountain, but his survival was very much overshadowed through history by historians, by Luis Separas, because Luis Separas was a prisoner at the city jail, and he was serving his time in solitary confinement in a very, very thick, very, very small jail cell separate from all the other prisoners. And he was right in the center of the city. In fact, the city jail stood right next to the big opera house, the theater. And it's a very, very small, thick walls. I've been in that cell when I went there.
But it's awful, isn't it?
And at my height, it was really, really small, little tiny door with bars on it. But it was that cell that saved him from the pyroclastic surge when it hit.
Well, because of the thick,
because
so strong.
Where it was positioned, because the windows, the volcano eruption, the Nuit Ardent came from that direction. He was facing that way. That was one thing that saved him. And just the way it was positioned, it was bunted right up against a brick hill embankment.
Right.
And in a corner, and the way it was curved like a little hut.
Right.
But very, very thick walls. And he wasn't discovered until 3 days after the eruption, badly burned. I mean, he didn't, and later, Separas went on to, Ringling Brothers, Barnum Bailey Circus.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
P.T. Barnum, he found him because he was all over the news and brought him to the United States, and he actually toured with the circus. So I thought, well, he was going to be my main character. He became a secondary character after I learned so much more of what was going on. I mean, there were so many other stories, other people. So there wasn't any one major story I was following, but several that were going on. There was the story of the British consul, Sir James Japp, and how he was stranded in his home, the British residency, by the torrents of the Roxland River, and his inability to be able to get out. There was the efforts of the American consul, Thomas Prentice, and his family, and their pleas of trying to get word out to the United States about this impending disaster, because he kind of saw the writing on the wall. And then the really big story also was Governor Louis Mottet. Now, he was appointed governor of Martinique just 5 months prior. He was new to the island. He was appointed by the French government in Paris. And he was struggling with something that he just wasn't prepared for.
Yeah, because it must have been so overwhelming.
It was very, very overwhelming. I mean, he didn't want to panic. He did do what he thought was right. Now, a lot of people have read the scripts, they come away saying, "Oh, I hate the governor because he did." Well, but if you think about what he was up against,
and
this was totally something that he was unfamiliar with, an erupting volcano, and that's why he appointed a commission to give him feedback on their areas of expertise. The danger of the sulfur gases, the smell in the air, the ash.
Because the smell's meant to be horrific.
It was very bad, like rotten eggs, they said.
But it must be so it's poisonous as well, of course.
Yeah, but birds were dropping dead all over the place. The streets of St. Pierre were just littered with dead birds everywhere. And everybody was having a hard time breathing because it was pretty bad. The ash was terrible, to say the least. And but there were so many different changes in the erupting volcano. I mean, it didn't hit them by surprise, by no means. On Monday, it erupted on Thursday, but on the prior Monday, there was a magnificent lair, which is a mud flow that swept down and completely buried one of the biggest rum distilleries, sugar distillery. They grew sugar and rum.
Yeah, yeah.
And it also caused a tsunami. Once it hit the water, it caused a great tsunami. And
Because the volume of
water that was displaced, and that
Right.
came right down the coast and hit the waterfront of St. Pierre, and that happened on Monday. There were so many things. The volcano drove down snakes, the deadly snakes from the flanks of the volcano into the city.
no.
There was, at least in the Giron plantation, which was the sugar refinery, they were infested with ants and very big centipedes, all driven down from the
this,
mountain.
Yeah.
And that wrecked and caused a lot of havoc. And that was right before the mud flow buried them.
Now this
So
is is multi-award winning already, isn't it?
Pardon me?
It's already multi-award winning.
Yes, it did.
So you've
So-
had really good feedback.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm very, very proud of it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, and ultimately, I say, what's the game plan? It's a really silly question, but I guess this is a feature of. This is ultimately a feature.
A feature and also an epic, which makes it a hard sell, I realize. But
Could it be a series? I mean, I guess
Could.
you must. You thought about that, I guess.
oh yeah, it could be. You know, a lot of cable series on that are have them broken up into several nights. I would love to see it, of course, as an epic film, and they still do them. But there was it was difficult to find anything to cut from it because it was also important for people to know why people decided to stay so close to a volcano. I mean, right now it's hindsight, of course. You know, the volcano's erupting, and all these apocalyptic type signs are happening: tsunami, snakes, insects, and ash. Of course, you'd leave. You'd
Yeah,
do anything
yeah.
to leave. So why did all these people leave? And
Sorry.
this story, I hope, will explain that. When I was in Martinique, one person I was a vendor joked. He says, there are no stupid people in Martinique because they all died in May 1902.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
And I thought, that's not right. That's not right. They weren't stupid. They were just victims of incredible misinformation.
Let's be honest about this. We're talking about something that's vastly different to what we know now. There's no instant communication.
Exactly.
We don't have the science and technology we have now.
And where would they go, too?
Yeah.
A lot of them, their homes were there. If they left, they didn't know where they would go. It's not like they had the Red Cross available to them or able to ship them off to other islands for safety. They really were at the mercy of just hoping that it would blow over, that it will eventually stop. And it was just 50 years earlier that Mont Pelee was erupting in the 1850s. And it only lasted a few days. It wasn't a major eruption. It shot up some steam, dropped some ash down, and then that was it. It was over. And that's primarily that's what the people were hoping for at the time.
And
It
I know
was
you-
like, where do they go?
And I know you mentioned about you found it very difficult to cut for all sorts of reasons, but it must be intrinsically difficult to do that because you realise a script should be, you're hoping a certain amount of pages, but there is such important detail, and the devil is in the detail. Cutting it is going to be really difficult.
Well, you know, and I was thinking about that. Oh boy, I had some anxiety-filled evenings, waking up thinking,
should I do this? Should
you
I
know,
do that? Yeah.
you're always thinking of that 120-page maximum, and I thought there's so much there, and exciting, you know, from beginning to end that pulls the person in, and I thought I'm just going to write it and be damned the page length. I'm just going to write it as it happened, everything as it happened. And there, like I said, there was so much. Then I remind myself of all the other movies that were very, very long films. Titanic, that was 194 minutes. And Gladiator and Reds, and I can go down the list, and Zhivago, Launch for Arabia. I mean, there's so many films that it exceeded the standard 2 hours. So I gave myself some peace of mind knowing that.
Yeah.
And once you do get into it, you really want to find out what's going to happen the next day, because every single day there was something else different happening. And crazy enough, the day of the eruption, the morning of the eruption, it happened at 8:02 in the morning, and it was a big holiday. It was a religious holiday, Ascension Day.
Yeah.
So the churches were filled; they were packed, and it was a beautiful day. Everybody thought, oh, Pelee has finally gone back to sleep. The skies were blue. There was just a little wisp of steam still coming up from the crater. And they thought, and the night before they had a torrential rain shower, lightning, thunder, and which cleaned the city up pretty good. It washed a lot of the ash away. So it looked like it was finally over. And then it just happened. In a blast that was heard as far away as Venezuela.
Oh my word.
And 40 times as powerful as the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. So, and what made it even really horrifying for the people of Saint Pierre is that it took 2 minutes for it to reach Saint Pierre from the volcano. So they saw it coming.
And they had no way of escaping.
And the skies instantly turned everything to dark, to night. And it was this big glowing monster basically coming towards them. And they saw it coming. And all they could do was run. Run where? Then he ran into the water. And then there's also the stories of all the ships that were in the harbor as well. Only one was able to escape it. Well, after being really severely damaged, and that was the Rodham. It was a British steamer, and then there was a Roraima, which was the largest passenger ship, and it was a Canadian Quebec line, and that was in harbor. But there were so many ships in the harbor, and their sunken hulls are still down there today. It's a diver's paradise because they're not very deep.
Yeah. And people watching this may wonder why we've left your book here, Life is But a Dream, but I just need to announce, obviously David knows this, that not only has Pelee got to scripts, nominated script in Madrid, but so is this actually.
Yes.
So congratulations with that. You've actually got 2 scripts in Madrid for 2017.
Yes.
And David's been kind enough to leave a copy of the book for me, but would you mind giving us some a synopsis of that as well?
Sure. Well, of course, I wrote Life is But a Dream as this book, going way back, and quite a while ago, actually. And after it was published in 2012, I decided to write the screenplay adaptation of it. And to date, Life is But a Dream has won more awards and been nominated more than anything I have written. Well, of course, I wrote it before Pelee too.
Yeah.
But in fact, it just picked up an award about 3 days ago with the Amsterdam Film Festival. So.
And could you tell us what it's
It's
a brilliant concept to me.
It's a reverse twist on reincarnation. Usually stories that you read on reincarnation always are set in the present, and the person remembers a life in our past.
Yeah.
I came up with this idea one day when I was living in Miami Beach at the time. I was sitting at a Starbucks and outside, and I was depressed. I don't know why, but I was depressed. And I was thinking, oh, woe is me. Maybe I'll go to bed tonight and just wake up and realize this whole life has just been a past life. I'll wake up in the future. It's an idea.
Boom.
So my character, Roger Owen, set in today, present day, he goes to bed on the night of his 40th birthday, and he wakes up over 100 years in the future, and they're 21, 25. He goes to bed in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he wakes up in Boston, Massachusetts as a totally different person.
Yeah.
Roger Owen is black, and he wakes up as Sidney Hamilton, who's Caucasian, and he's a Welsh Harvard professor, and he has no inkling, no memory whatsoever of Sidney Hamilton.
So
Only his past life
right.
that began in the 20th century and ended when he went to bed in the 21st century. and now it's the 22nd century, and there's a lot of mystery involved too. Well, he tries to reconnect with his kin from his previous life, tries to find out where they are, if any are still alive. And also there's a mystery man who seems to be pursuing him, but he doesn't know why. And you actually don't find out why until the very last
There is a reason.
pages.
Obviously, there is a reason. Yeah.
There is a reason why he's pursuing him, and ultimately is trying to kill him. But he doesn't, again, he has no idea who this person is because he can't remember his life as Sidney Hamilton,
Yes.
who woke up in this hospital in Boston. Only his past life is Roger Owen. It sounds confusing.
No.
But
you've won awards
it
for
is-
reasons.
Yeah, it is intriguing, and at the same time, he has this a beautiful psychologist named Dr. Jessica Wynn, who is who's trying to figure it out. She's the one who ultimately realizes that it's a case of reincarnation.
Right.
That he's remembering a past life, and then something grows between the two of them
Yeah.
as well. A fond relationship begins. So it was exciting. It took 2 years to write the book. It didn't take as long to write the screenplay.
No, 'cause you
because
had the book,
the
yeah.
book was already written, well researched. I had to research reincarnation, researched a host of other subjects. The 1918 influenza pandemic, viruses, traveled to New York, Boston, again, to walk in the feet of my main character. So, but I love research.
No, it's
I love
brilliant.
doing that for
Really
doing
well
that
done.
in films. So I'm thrilled that Life is But a Dream is nominated in Madrid, as well as Pelee.
Yes. Fantastic. I'm really pleased here. David, that's it. Believe it or not. Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you very much
Thank you
for-
so much.